Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When Dan Rivers traded his engineering desk for 18 acres of stubborn Carolina dirt, he thought he'd found peace. But when a powerful HOA sets its sights on his land, a quiet life turns into a war zone of forged maps, midnight raids, and one-man stand against suburban tyranny. Some folks dream of luxury condos or lakefront mansions. Me, I dreamed of dirt. Good, clean, stubborn Carolina dirt, the kind you have to fight to till and sweat to shape. 7 years ago, I bought 18 acres of it, a raw, overgrown patch in Wilkes County, North Carolina, and I made it mine the only way I know how, with bare hands, cracked knuckles, and a back that still complains when it rains. I'm Dan Rivers, 39, former structural engineer turned full-time builder and farmer. Everything here, from the cedar frame house to the post and beam barn, from the greenhouse to the trout pond tucked behind the ridge, I built it all myself. I sunk every dollar I had, every skill I learned, and every ounce of grief from my family's past into this land. We lost our farm when I was a teenager. Some backroom handshake between county officials and a hungry developer took it from us. I swore then, never again. So when I say this land is mine, I don't mean it in the legal sense only. I mean it in my bones. It's peaceful out here. No barking dogs, no lawnmowers at 6 a.m., no one knocking on your door trying to sell you solar panels or salvation. My closest neighbor's a quarter mile down a dirt road, and even he prefers radio silence unless there's a coyote on the loose. That's how I like it. That piece started cracking last fall when I noticed construction trucks rumbling past more often than usual. I figured it was another modular house or two going up down the road. Then came the mailers, slick, colorful envelopes addressed to Resident Green Hills Community. At first, I tossed them, assuming it was spam. Then came a certified letter with a gold seal and a ridiculous logo of a pine tree inside a circle. Inside, as of Q1, the Green Hills Community HOA is expanding to include adjacent residential zones. Please submit your property registration and architectural plans by March 1st to remain in compliance. I read it twice, then laughed, then tossed it in the stove. I didn't sign up for any HOA. I didn't buy into a subdivision. I bought raw land outside of zoning districts for this exact reason. No nosy boards, no rules about how tall my grass is, and definitely no one telling me where I can park my tractor. Whatever this Green Hills HOA was, it had nothing to do with me. But still, something about the tone stuck with me. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a warning, dressed as an invitation. And I've been around long enough to know that when people start drawing maps without asking, it's never just paperwork. It's a land grab in slow motion, so I made a copy of my deed, updated my security system, and waited. Something told me peace wouldn't last much longer. It was a Tuesday morning when they showed up. Not with a knock, not with a call ahead, but with the smug confidence of people who think clipboards grant them divine authority. I was hauling feed bags from the truck to the barn when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel, followed by the unmistakable chirp of those cheap walkie-talkies private security firms like to use to feel important. 4 people stood at my front gate. One woman, blonde bob, designer sunglasses, skin stretched tight across her cheekbones, stood in front like she was posing for a magazine cover titled How to Ruin a Neighborhood. 2 men in black polo shirts stood behind her, hands folded, matching earpieces in their ears. A 4th guy, a weasel-looking type, carried a leather folio and a tablet he clutched like a priest with a Bible. I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked over slowly, already knowing what this was. "You must be Mr. Rivers," the woman said, voice polished but sharp. "Karen Lawrence, president of the Green Hills Community Homeowners Association." She said the title like she expected me to bow. I nodded once. "You're on private property." Karen smiled like a cat. "That's what we're here to clarify. There's been a slight misunderstanding in the zoning boundary updates, and we're here to do a site check and confirm your compliance status." I stared at her. "There is no compliance. I'm not part of your HOA. I've never signed anything. This is my land, bought outright, outside of any planned community. You're trespassing." The guy with the folio stepped forward. "We have documentation from the county recorder's office that shows the expansion plan. You're within the boundary of Green Hills Phase 3. "I'm within the boundary of my patience," I snapped. "Show me the document." He fumbled to unlock his tablet. I didn't wait. I pointed at the end of my driveway. You've got 10 seconds to turn around and walk off my land before I call the sheriff." Karen raised a manicured hand. "Now, there's no need to be hostile. We simply need you to provide your deed and architectural approval for the structures on site. Otherwise, we'll be forced to issue a non-compliance citation." I let out a sharp breath. "Lady, I built this farm myself. Every nail, every fence post, every damn chicken coop. I didn't ask your board for permission, and I sure as hell don't owe you an explanation." One of the security guys pulled out his phone and started taking pictures of the barn. I stepped forward, snatched it out of his hand, and dropped it in the dirt. "You're done here," I said, low and flat. "Leave." Karen's smile slipped just enough to show the teeth behind it. "You may want to reconsider your tone, Mr. Rivers. We'll be back with formal paperwork. This isn't over." She turned on her heel and marched off like she'd just won something. The others followed, muttering to each other. I watched their SUV disappear back down the road and didn't move until the dust settled. Then I walked into the house, pulled out my deed, scanned it twice, and emailed copies to both the county assessor and the sheriff's department, just in case someone decided to get clever, because I knew what I just witnessed wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a test, and they'd just learned I don't bend. It didn't take long for the weird to turn professional. A few days after the Karen parade left my driveway, I started noticing things that didn't sit right. First, a shiny new sign popped up about 30 feet from my eastern fence line. White plastic, green lettering. Green Hills Community, private property, no trespassing. Funny, I thought, considering that sign was hammered straight into my land. At first, I figured it was just some overzealous HOA intern sticking poles in the wrong spot. I yanked it out, tossed it by the roadside, and didn't think much of it. But then I got a text from my friend Tyler, who runs a small drone photography business. He sends me a screenshot with the caption, "Bro, did you sell the farm?" The image was a screen grab from one of those real estate platforms showing my land marked in pale green, the same shade used to highlight HOA-controlled lots in the new development. The label under it? Phase 3 Community Parcel, Planned Residential Use. I called Tyler immediately. "What am I looking at?" I asked. "Looks like someone updated the GIS overlay," he said. "Your parcel shows up under HOA control in 2 systems now, Zillow and GeoCounty's mapping tool." "GeoCounty's? That's official," I said slowly. "Yup." Which means either someone with access made a mistake or someone did it on purpose. My blood started to simmer. I wasn't new to this game. I'd spent a decade working with infrastructure firms. I knew how land records, overlays, and zoning revisions worked, and I knew they didn't just update themselves. I drove straight to the county registrar's office the next morning. The clerk at the desk, Janine, gave me that tight, polite smile that says, "I'm underpaid and very tired." I explained what I'd seen. She tapped a few keys and tilted the monitor my way. There it was. Parcel 711B, Green Hills Community Holdings, subject to HOA oversight. I leaned closer. "That's not just wrong. That's forged. You have previous records?" She hesitated. "Let me get my supervisor." 15 minutes later, I was in a tiny glass-walled office with a man named Ray, who looked like he hadn't updated his glasses since 1987. He pulled up historical entries, the original deed from 7 years ago. "Clean title transfer, outside HOA boundaries. Looks like it was amended 3 weeks ago," he said, frowning. "By clerk ID, H2198. I recognized that ID. I'd seen it on a signed zoning map in the HOA packet Karen tried to show me. One of their board members used to work in this office. Now it all made sense. "Who authorized that amendment?" I asked. Ray looked uncomfortable. "That shouldn't have happened without your consent." "No kidding." I walked out with a printed copy of both the original and the amended records and drove straight to the sheriff's office. Deputy Cole met me at the counter. "This is official falsification," I said. "I want to file a complaint." He reviewed the documents and nodded slowly. "This is serious, Dan. I'll get the DA looped in." That night, I got another letter in the mail, certified again. HOA seal, formal language, a notice of violation citing me for erecting structures without proper HOA permits and demanding $2,000 in fines. They even included a low-res satellite image with red boxes drawn over my barn and greenhouse, like some kindergarten art project. They were getting bolder, smarter, or at least they thought they were. It was Saturday morning, and I was halfway through repairing the hinge on my chicken coop when the flashing red and blue lights crawled up my driveway like a slow-burning fuse. A Wilkes County Sheriff's cruiser rolled to a stop just outside my gate. I wiped the sweat off my brow and walked toward it, already guessing who was behind this little surprise. The door opened, and out stepped Deputy Travis, mid-30s. Solid guy, calm demeanor, someone I'd seen a few times at the feed store. But today, he looked tense. "Morning, Dan," he said, glancing down at the clipboard in his hand. "Let me guess," I said, crossing my arms. "Someone called in a trespasser on my own damn land." He nodded, almost apologetically. "We got a 911 report. Caller stated there's a man illegally occupying community land and refusing to vacate. Claims you're squatting." I snorted. Did the caller happen to sound like a blender full of nails and Chardonnay? He cracked a faint smile. Didn't say. But I have to check it out. Behind him, another car pulled in, and out stepped the queen herself, Karen Lawrence, wearing a white blazer, sunglasses perched like a crown, and holding a manila folder like it contained the 10 Commandments. 2 of her security goons stood behind her, arms folded, ready for a photo op. "There he is," she screeched, pointing a French manicured finger at me like I was the final boss in a neighborhood-themed video game. "That's him. He's the trespasser." I blinked. "On the land I've lived on for 7 years?" Karen strutted forward, waving her folder. "This is community property now. Green Hills Phase 3 has officially absorbed this parcel. He's been notified, and he refuses to comply. He's a danger to the neighborhood, hostile, unregistered, and potentially armed." Travis raised an eyebrow. "Karen, I'm going to need you to take a breath." "No," she snapped. "I want him removed. Arrested." Now, I turned to Travis calmly. "You want documents?" "I've got them." I walked to my truck, pulled out the file I'd prepped after the last stunt, certified deed, original zoning map, the amended version with forged boundaries, and photos from my trail cameras showing Karen and her rent-a-thugs wandering. Around past the gate, Travis examined everything carefully, flipping through pages in silence while Karen fumed behind him. "I also submitted a formal complaint last week," I added. "DA's office has a copy." Karen tried to interject, but he held up a hand. "Ma'am, please, let me finish reviewing." As he read, Karen began pacing like a caged animal. "He's lying. Those documents are fake. Anyone can print out papers and staple them." "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what I thought about your HOA fines." That did it. She lunged forward like a banshee in yoga pants, trying to snatch the papers out of Travis's hands. He stepped between us, firm but restrained. "Karen, back up. You're escalating the situation." "I'll escalate you, officer. Do you even know who I am?" "Yeah," I muttered. "The woman who's about 3 minutes away from a disorderly conduct charge." Karen finally froze, eyes wide with indignation. She turned back to her guards like they were supposed to back her up, but they both suddenly found the clouds very interesting. Travis handed me back my documents and turned toward her. "This land is not part of Green Hills. The documents are valid, and the sheriff's office is aware of the boundary tampering. This is a civil matter, and you're bordering on criminal interference." Karen let out a strangled sound somewhere between a scoff and a scream. "This isn't over," she hissed. "We'll take this to the board, to the county, to court." Travis's voice was flat. "For now, you're leaving. Do it voluntarily, or I'll write you up for trespass and disorderly behavior." She spun on her heel and stormed off, her security detail trailing behind like a disappointed wedding party. Travis stayed behind for a moment. "She's really going all in, huh?" "She forged zoning maps and sent people onto my land at night. I'd say she's committed." He sighed. "I'll file the report. Just keep everything documented." "She's got influence, but it won't save her from facts." As he drove off, I stood at the end of my drive, watching the dust settle. My land was quiet again for now. But I knew damn well Karen wasn't going to stop just because she didn't win this round. By the end of the week, the mailman started giving me that "you all right, buddy" look every time he pulled up. I didn't blame him. The HOA letters were coming daily now, like clockwork. Stiff white envelopes, official logos, gold-foiled lettering that screamed overcompensating. I stopped opening them after the third one. But curiosity got the better of me, and on Friday I cracked one open over breakfast. Notice of violation, it read in bold. Failure to obtain architectural approval. Unauthorized agricultural structure. Below that, a color photo of my barn. A barn I built 5 years ago. The fine? $4,500. I flipped the page. Another violation, non-conforming greenhouse design. General $1,800. They'd even highlighted parts of my land like some overzealous hall monitor with a map fetish. I chuckled bitterly and tossed the papers aside, but the laughter didn't stick. This wasn't just noise anymore. They were building a paper trail, or trying to, and that meant they were setting something up. So I went to town and bought a few upgrades: motion-activated lights, extra trail cams, a new alarm box for the gate. I'd already had a camera system set up for years, but now I added infrared. If a squirrel so much as farted near my fence, I'd know. The next few days were quiet, almost too quiet. No visits, no new signs. Karen must have been licking her wounds after her dramatic meltdown in front of Deputy Travis. Then, Tuesday night rolled around. It was close to midnight when my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the west perimeter. I rubbed my eyes, rolled over, and checked the feed. 3 figures, all in dark clothes, were standing near my back gate. One had a flashlight. Another carried a clipboard. I sat bolt upright, pulled on boots and jeans, grabbed the old Winchester from behind the door, not loaded but loud when needed, and slipped outside. By the time I got close, they were inside the fence line. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I barked. The flashlight swung my way, blinding me for a second. One of them stammered, We were just doing an inspection." At midnight, the guy with the clipboard looked nervous. "We're with Green Hills HOA compliance. We were asked to survey the structures and ensure alignment with standards." By trespassing onto private property in the dark, I stepped forward. I should let the dogs out and see if they agree with that policy. One of them backed up. "We were told this land was under jurisdiction." "Yeah?" I pointed at the camera mounted above them, blinking red. "Smile for the lawsuit." They scattered like raccoons. I didn't chase them, just made sure they were gone and walked the fence line before heading back in to check the footage. Clear faces, license plate, full audio. The next morning, I sent the whole folder to the sheriff's office. I didn't bother calling first. By noon, Deputy Travis called me back. "You've got their plates?" "Yep, we'll run 'em." "You want to press charges?" "You bet your badge I do." That evening, another envelope arrived, this one hand-delivered and slipped under my gate. No logo, just a single sheet of paper that read, "This doesn't have to be difficult. Join the community and we can make this all go away." No signature, but I knew the perfume. Lavender and entitlement. I wish I could say the letter shook me, but it didn't. It pissed me off. It confirmed exactly what I already knew. Karen wasn't just some delusional HOA president drunk on power. She was strategic. She was calculating. And now she was desperate. So I tightened the perimeter. I added solar-powered floodlights at the back trail, reinforced the side gates with steel rods, and set up speakers to blast the sound of barking dogs if motion was detected after midnight. Not real dogs, just recordings. But at 2 in the morning, your average trespasser can't tell the difference, especially when it comes with flashing lights and a sensor-triggered siren. Mike, my neighbor and former Marine, offered to swing by after dark, said it gave him something to do and an excuse to sip coffee and load magazines. Not that we were planning on using them, but having a guy like Mike on your porch makes even idiots think twice. But idiots don't always think. It was just after 2 a.m. on a Thursday when the alarms went off. All of them. West, south, and the main gate sensors. I shot out of bed, boots already by the door, and grabbed my jacket and flashlight. Mike was already outside, holding his thermos in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. We moved fast. The west fence had been cut, sloppy like someone used bolt cutters in a hurry. 4 men were moving along the tree line, trying to stay low, dressed in black tactical gear that looked like they came straight from a Halloween catalog. Karen was there too. I couldn't believe it. She was wearing all black, leggings, a hoodie, and a damn utility belt like she was auditioning for some suburban vigilante squad. I stepped out from the shadows and lit them up with the flashlight. "Drop whatever the hell you're doing and back away from the fence." One of the guys, big, bald, and clearly on something stronger than energy drinks, charged forward yelling, "This is HOA enforcement." Mike moved fast. He didn't hit him, just blocked the guy's rush and dropped him to the ground like flipping a switch. That's when the shouting started. Karen screamed. Another goon lunged toward me. I backed up, dropped the flashlight, and threw a shovel handle right at his knee. He went down cursing. Somewhere in the chaos, Karen shouted, "Citizens arrest! He's attacking us!" "Get him!" That's when the first set of headlights lit up the field. Sheriff's Department, 2 cruisers. They pulled in fast, and within seconds, deputies were out, guns drawn, ordering everyone to the ground. "Hands where I can see 'em." On your knees now. I dropped to my knees, heart racing but hands steady. Mike did the same, calm as ever. Karen, meanwhile, was wailing about community security protocols and sovereign authority. We all got cuffed. Yep, even me and Mike. At the station, they separated us. I gave my full statement, handed over the camera footage, and pointed out the gate cutting, the trespassing, the physical assault. Karen, from what I heard, tried to blame everything on volunteer enforcement agents acting independently. I was out by morning, no charges filed. Mike, too. The HOA thugs, still being processed. Karen, released with a warning. For now. I barely had time to shake the dirt off from the night in lockup before the next fire started burning. The morning after the raid, I met with my lawyer, Rachel. Sharp as a tack, temperament of a bloodhound, and absolutely no tolerance for bull. Exactly the kind of person you want in your corner when a lunatic HOA president sends people in ninja costumes to breach your fence. We sat in her office downtown going over everything. Footage, statements, damage photos, the works. When she got to the forged zoning maps, she paused. This one here, she said, tapping the amended GIS overlay, was uploaded using an internal credential, County Clerk ID H2198. That's your smoking gun. I figured as much, I muttered. That ID matches the one Karen showed off in her official packet. Rachel leaned back in her chair. Then it's time to take this nuclear. She filed an immediate motion requesting the county's internal audit logs. Meanwhile, I gave the sheriff's office everything I had. Photos of the gate cuts, stills of Karen and her goons trespassing, even the audio from the dog barking alarm going off during the raid. 2 days later, I got a call from Deputy Travis. We got confirmation, he said. The zoning amendment to your parcel was made without authorization. County IT traced it back to a workstation tied to the HOA's former vice president. Guy works part-time at the recorder's office. Karen likely coached him. Is it criminal? I asked. Forgery of public records, that's a felony in this state. I smiled for the first time in a while, but the rot went deeper. While I was inspecting the greenhouse for damages, I noticed the irrigation pressure was low. Too low. I followed the lines back to the main valve and found it had been tampered with. Stripped bolts, cross-threaded fittings, and worst of all, someone had poured sand into the intake. I had to replace the whole pump. The pond's filtration system was clogged with debris too, chunks of fiberglass, insulation, and scrap wire. It looked like someone dumped construction trash into the intake just to sabotage the water quality. Rachel had an appraiser look at the total damage. Between equipment, repairs, lost yield, and labor, it came out to just north of $45,000. We added it to the growing list, but Karen wasn't done trying to spin it all. That same week, she sent out another letter, this one glossy, printed like a damn magazine cover, claiming that the recent events at the border of Green Hills were the result of an unfortunate misunderstanding with a non-compliant neighbor. It included a timeline of events so full of lies it could have doubled as satire. Then came the kicker. An envelope arrived via courier. Inside, a typed letter on HOA letterhead and a cashier's check for $15,000. A sticky note was attached. Let's end this quietly. We're all neighbors here. That's when I knew she was scared. You don't try to buy silence unless you've got something real to hide. By the time Rachel filed the lawsuit, we had a stack of evidence thicker than a cinder block and twice as heavy. The complaint named Karen Lawrence personally, along with the Green Hills HOA as an entity. Charges included property damage, trespassing, harassment, attempted fraud, and a nice, juicy count of forgery tied to the zoning maps. We weren't just defending anymore. We were going on the offensive. The HOA, unsurprisingly, went into immediate damage control. Their response hit Rachel's desk 3 days later, full of legal gymnastics and finger-pointing. According to them, Karen had acted independently and without board approval, and any damages incurred were the result of unauthorized individual actions. They were trying to cut her loose like a tumor to save the body. Didn't matter. The body was already rotten. At the preliminary hearing, the judge, a stern woman named Gentry with a voice that could crack drywall, didn't seem impressed by the HOA's attempt to play innocent. When their lawyer suggested that Karen was merely exercising precautionary oversight, Gentry raised an eyebrow and asked, "Is breaking and entering now part of your enforcement charter?" Karen sat at the defendant's table in a beige blazer, trying to look like a misunderstood community leader. But she flinched every time Rachel brought up a timestamp, a quote, a face on a video. The footage of her walking onto my land in the middle of the night, shouting citizens arrest, played like a scene from a failed sitcom. The courtroom didn't laugh, but you could feel the cringe ripple through the air. We called 2 neighbors to testify. One confirmed hearing the alarms and shouting the night of the raid. The other brought a printed email Karen had sent weeks earlier bragging about reclaiming misallocated land and teaching the squatter a lesson. Rachel laid it all out like a murder mystery. Only the weapon was arrogance, and the victim was common sense. Karen's defense, if you can call it that, relied heavily on intent. They argued she believed in good faith that the property belonged to the HOA. When the judge asked what proof she had of that belief, Karen pulled out the same doctored map we'd already dismantled, along with a verbal agreement she claimed existed between her predecessor and a previous owner. Gentry leaned forward. "Do you have a recording, a signed affidavit, anything resembling a legal document?" Karen glanced at her lawyer, then back at the judge. "No, but I have my truth." It was the closest I've ever seen a judge roll her eyes in court. Rachel rested our case with confidence. Then, to drive the nail in, she introduced a copy of the cashier's check Karen had sent me, with the sticky note still attached. "An innocent party doesn't try to buy silence," Rachel said. "They don't send hired men onto someone's land, they don't forge official documents, and they certainly don't break in at 2 a.m. dressed like they're in a low-budget SWAT team." The judge took it all in, nodding slowly. "I will issue a formal ruling within the next 7 days," she said. Karen didn't look so smug walking out that time. And for the first time in weeks, I did. The courtroom was packed when the final hearing began. Word had gotten around. Small towns love drama, especially the kind that includes fraud, break-ins, and a wannabe HOA dictator in a pantsuit. Even the guy who runs the local bait shop showed up, pretending to check his phone while very clearly recording everything under the table. Karen arrived with her entourage, 2 board members still pretending to support her, and her cousin Doug, who fancied himself a legal consultant because he once attended a weekend seminar on conflict mediation. She wore a navy blue suit and enough perfume to fumigate a barn. Her smile was brittle, eyes scanning the room like she still believed she could win with posture alone. Judge Gentry didn't waste time. "We are here to issue a final ruling in Rivers v. Lawrence and Green Hills HOA." She recapped the evidence in clipped, unforgiving language: the forged zoning overlays, the midnight trespassing, the sabotage of water systems, the attempt to bribe me into silence. Each count landed like a hammer. Karen shrank an inch with every word. Then came the witness recap. The deputy who responded to the raid testified again. My neighbor Mike confirmed the physical confrontation and Karen's screaming threats. Even one of her own enforcement volunteers turned on her, probably to avoid getting charged himself, admitting that she directed him to enter and assess the property, regardless of resistance. Rachel requested full restitution, $45,000 in property damages, $75,000 for legal fees and security upgrades, and $130,000 for emotional distress and defamation. She read the HOA's flyers aloud, the ones labeling me a dangerous squatter and distributing them throughout the community without a shred of evidence. Karen's lawyer stammered through a defense about overreach and poor judgment, trying to frame it as a misunderstanding gone wrong. But even he looked ready to slide under the table when the judge asked how a misunderstanding justified falsifying government records. When it came time for Karen to speak, she stood up, face flushed. "I was only trying to protect our community," she said. "No one else had the backbone to take action." The judge tilted her head. "So, you forged documents, trespassed with armed security, damaged property, and sent illegal citations because no one else would." Karen opened her mouth, then shut it. Judge Gentry tapped her gavel. "Karen Lawrence, you are hereby found liable on all civil counts. Restitution in the amount of $250,000 is granted to Mr. Rivers. In addition, I am referring this case to the district attorney for formal criminal investigation into forgery, trespassing, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Karen gasped. One of her board members slipped out the back. "As for Green Hills HOA," Gentry continued, "you are ordered to conduct an immediate reorganization. Ms. Lawrence is to be removed from all current and future leadership positions, effective immediately. Failure to comply will result in suspension of HOA authority pending county review." Rachel leaned over and whispered, "That's the sound of a woman being buried by her own arrogance." Outside, the local paper was waiting. I didn't say much, just gave them a short line. No one has the right to take what they didn't build. Karen. She left through the side door, ducking behind Doug like he was a human shield. The queen had fallen, and she wasn't getting back up. A month after the ruling, the silence on my land felt different. Not the tense kind, like you're waiting for another shoe to drop. This was peace. Earned, settled, weight off your back kind of peace. The kind you only get after a war. Karen was gone, figuratively and literally. She'd been indicted on 3 criminal charges and, according to the grapevine, was staying with her sister somewhere in Tennessee, taking time to reflect. HOA Green Hills went through a full overhaul, voting in new leadership and sending me formal letter of apology, printed on thick paper, like that was supposed to mean something. I didn't respond. What mattered wasn't what they said. It's what they stopped doing. No more letters, no more threats, no more flashlights bobbing along my fence line at 2 a.m. I repaired the west gate myself. Welded the hinges tighter, reinforced the locks, planted blackberry bushes along the inside, give 'em something thorny to chew on if they ever got bold again. Fixed up the greenhouse too. A little scorched earth never stopped a builder. I'd poured concrete through worse. The best part? I had neighbors dropping by, people who used to wave politely and keep walking, now showing up with beer or homemade peach cobbler and muttering things like, "Glad someone finally stood up to her." Turns out, I wasn't the only one Karen had tried to strong-arm over the years. Just the first one who pushed back with a file folder instead of a white flag. Rachel, my lawyer, said we could sue the HOA separately for systemic negligence. I told her maybe someday, but for now, I just wanted to rebuild, plant, and breathe. A few weeks after the ruling, I hosted a little get-together. Nothing fancy. Just a bonfire, some pulled pork, a cooler full of beer, and a bunch of folks who knew what it meant to protect what's yours. Mike manned the grill like it was a military operation. His wife brought her famous jalapeno cornbread, and someone even brought fireworks. When the sun dipped behind the ridge, I stood by the gate and hammered in a new sign I'd carved from old oak. This land was built by hand. Don't touch what you didn't build. People clapped. Not like a ceremony, more like they just understood. We sat around the fire until late, swapping stories, laughing hard, swatting mosquitoes, and talking about nothing. I looked around and saw faces I didn't always notice before. Real people, good people, folks who just wanted to live without being told what their mailbox should look like or what shade of beige their siding had to be. That night, as the embers glowed low and the stars took over, I walked the edge of the property with a cold drink in my hand and boots heavy with ash and soil. And I knew, without a flicker of doubt, that this land, every post, every nail, every inch, was mine. Not because a judge said so, but because I made it that way.